Industry. For some, the greatest achievement of humankind. For sure, one of the greatest cornerstones of modern society. From its invention in 1750, it evolved and expanded with relative few limits, until the recent change in direction, where the economy and the industry is concentrating on improving its level of quality instead of quantity. So, where is it going? What is the future of the industry? Hi, this is Gabriel from Frequality, and in this video we are discussing a sort of compromise between the industry and our chances of saving us from climate annihilation. In this particular speech I intend to use a bit more data than usual. And if you are not new to this channel, which you probably are, given my visuals, but never mind. Anyway, if you're not new to this channel, you know that any data is more data than usual. Anyway, let's begin. The first thing we need to know about our economy, if we want to change it, is that part of it is dedicated to industry. According to the European Environment Agency, the economical sectors are agriculture, energy, transportation and industry. I believe that in their article they were concentrating on the impact of these sectors in the environment, so I think we should add to the list trade or marketing and the big group of entertaining. The problem with our topic is that since the Industrial Revolution, every part of the economy depends on the work of machinery to function, and if not, like finance for example, it's the opposite. So in one way or another, when sectors are not related directly, they are all connected in some form because, or in general, to the industry. So now we need to dive a little bit deeper. The College of Biomedical Science states that just like the economy, the industry is split in categories as well, and you can see that they don't differ so much from what we said earlier. As you can see, there is a section dedicated to agriculture, there is finance, but there is also pieces referring to transportation and construction. Before we analyze this, it's important for you to know that the concept of industry can be explained with just three words. Extraction, that is the gathering of resources, production, which is the process of transformation or conversion of the resources, and then we have the services. From our beautiful scheme we can see that services occupy the biggest slice of our pie, 40% of it to be exact. So what are those? Basically, services in the industry are everything that separates the producers and the consumers, except trading. Services are banking, exchange of goods during production, warehousing, etc. So basically capitalism at its most complicated or at its worst. Services are the bureaucratic process of the economy, so the part where usually you make the most money. The problem is that they are fundamental in today's global economies, because the industry expands in an area so vast that there is a need for an intermediary, in this case more than one. In fact, this is where we should cut first if we want a less damaging industry. We need the gap between production and consuming to be smaller. This is the first reform of the video, so let's see some solutions. We need an industry focused on the local. I remember last time I went to one of the many metropolises of the United States, I think it was Cincinnati. Sometimes their fresh vegetables cost more than fresh meat. And the reason is because those cities don't have easy access to fields, sometimes even for how big they are, but in general because the distance between the retail trading and the fields makes it harder to transport vegetables, having them fresh in the morning, than you would do with meat. You can just freeze and it lasts a lot more in the same state. I understand that it seems stupid, but it is what it is. As you can imagine, the higher the cost, the lesser the demand, so the lesser the people buying healthier food, the higher the cost. About all of this we could do two things. You could have smaller cities, not small, just smaller, enough to reduce that distance, or in alternative we could change our cities so that all of them have access to their own food, because most of the time the trade or the transport is actually between states, and there are those that basically just produce food, and there are those that have none. We need a solution in the middle. This way not only we increase the possibilities of having fresh food in our proximity, but also we would reduce the cost of transportation, and with less transports we would have reduced also the emissions of dangerous gases. So the solution is reducing the distance. This could actually work for a lot of services related issues. Having producers closer to the consumers would make everything easier. This is the problem with globalization. Not that the people have an easier way of relating, we shouldn't go back to feudalism. The problem is the interconnection of economies. And even here, the point is not that we should close all of our borders, but that we should connect the economies for what they need. So for the needs of the people, and not because a company needs to pay less taxes or when it needs to buy materials where they cost less. In so doing, damaging the local economy for both the country where it takes the resources and the one where it sells them. After all, reducing the distance means being together as all the people, not being divided by economies and borders, but not together in the way that we are all slaves of capitalism at the same level. In the end, if we would produce for what we actually need and not for greed, we would realize that economies don't have to be so big to give us all the comforts we deserve. All I've said came just from industrial services, because I feel that there is where the magic happens, or where the cancer is. Now, what about the rest of the industry? Well, as you can see, the third biggest section is constructions. In this case, from a political point of view, it can get tricky. In the Western countries, we don't lack housing. The problem is that there is people with more than one house and people without any. Also, even if I feel that we should cut a little bit here, there is an enormous part of the world where it's common to sleep on the ground. Not because they are animals, because those people don't have the possibilities to build or buy a home that can resist the wind and rain. So it depends on where you are. Honorable mention to finance, which gets in the way even in the more practical part of the economy. Finance deserves a video of its own. For now, I'll just say that in my idealistic dream of a perfect society, finance is simply something you know from video games that take you to the old world of capitalism, where money was the only thing that mattered. Also a small mention to mining, that was considered a sin even for the ancient Romans and Greeks. I think there is not much to cut here, as you can see it is just 0.4%, but you can still work on it. For example, avoiding to steal resources from not industrialized countries, or investing in recycling instead of burning anything with a scratch on it. This way we could at least reduce even more the necessity of mining. Leaving finance and mining, let's discuss wholesales and retail trade. It's fascinating to see how retail trade is 3 times larger than the wholesale. If you think about it, it's the same number of things that get sold, so it should be the same percentage. I guess it all goes back to the free market. It doesn't matter what you produce, but the infinite ways in which you sell what you produce. Here I don't think there is really much to do. If trade follows the need and not the mere demands, there is nothing to discuss. What we should change is not the selling itself, but the way people seizes the action of buying. The rhetoric of the more the better, and so to create a better industry we should push on quality instead of quantity. And this you can only do by educating people on the importance of recycling and teaching the values of things, where they are not only the object they can see, they are also the work behind the construction, especially the human struggle behind some kind of productions. The art of recycle needs instead to be imposed to the industry, helping the translation to the green economy. Yes, but politicians still have to set a date and a great monetary punishment for those companies that kept refusing to use recyclable materials for their products, or that fuse two different in the same packaging. And these are just a few examples. Manufacturing. For those that don't know, basically this is anything that gets produced and you can touch. So the hardware parts of a computer are manufacturing, also the disc of a movie or a video game, but also a car or a bike, a dishwasher. Those are all made through the manufacturing process. Here we should follow the same philosophy of trading. In the passage to a more green economy, we need to learn how to have less things, but better in quality. Maybe even learning to share some of them, so we don't need to produce one of everything for all inhabitants of this planet. Just like for trading and commerce, you cannot change all the people's mind in one day, but politicians can still stop companies to push in the wrong direction, where you just produce and produce so that they get the most money out of the destruction of our ecosystem. Finally, something more optimistic. I left the smallest slice of this pie until last, because you always save the best for last, right? And in this case, it is the best. It's public services, it's medicine, it's transportation. So sectors where you really need to invest. I could talk for hours about services, how they are at the base of an equal society. Public services could truly be everything you can think of. Education, schools, access to books and knowledge. It could be hospitals, free access to medicine, to the medical needs. It can be transportation, long range and short range. It can be communication, so everything that a person needs could be publicly funded, so that we would spend our money and our time just on entertaining and art, literature, cinema, photography and so on. At the same time, governments could invest in agriculture, guaranteeing good food for anyone that is not able to buy it, maybe even helping those countries which don't have the technological means to produce enough for it, instead of using the people of those same places for the industry of the useless. The access of public services is what makes a citizen free to move and explore in a free society, because it allows her or him not to be worried about money, in a community where all the basic needs are taken for granted and are seen not as luxury comforts, but as human rights. This is what it means to be free. To have not just the right, but also the possibility to do and be what we want. This is a green world. This is free quality.
Open eye, feel the waves cut through me, hypnotized by the sounds I'm breathing in. Hold tight.